MovieWeb.com.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you about Tetro is, when Youth Without Youth came out, you had told a story about somebody breaking into your apartment and stealing some files for the movie.
They stole my computer. I stole every computer in the house, about 10 computers.
And I'm wondering, how did that affect the eventual outcome of what Tetro is now?
It didn't affect it at all. The script was in the computer, but there was a half dozen of them in the office, and it was absolutely made up by the Argentine press that this was. I mean, it was terrible to have a break-in with violence, and it was terrible to lose your computer because I lost all my personal pictures. But eventually, I was able to buy the hard drive back on the black market, so I got all my pictures back. But it never had anything to do with the script or anything.
La Boca isn't shown on film hardly at all, especially in the last 20 years, at least in America.
Yeah, most of the movie is set in La Boca. That is La Boca, where Tetro lives, and those cafes, and that's La Boca. La Boca is sort of like Little Italy or Harlem. It's a port. It's where the immigrants first would stay, and so it's cheap, and so it's filled with artists and theater, stuff like that.
And it's very colorful, and I was going to ask you, was it hard to make the decision to suck all of that color out? Because you almost keep the sense of the place with the black and white. It almost makes it more dreamlike.
Well, the decision to make a film in black and white is just a creative decision. It seems in stills and in fine art still photography, they appreciate that black and white is a different form. It's not just the absence of color. So if you were to go and buy yourself a $100,000 photographic print, it could be in black and white, it could be in color. It's legitimate expression, whereas in movies, because of television, the television executives made a lot of rules. Said, well, if it's a black and white film, we're going to pay half. If it's a subtitled film, we're going to not take it at all. So they made these rules that, in effect, affect all of the movie business because everyone is trying to make their money back. And if the television market is going to have a penalty for black and white, no one's going to make a black and white film, which is what we have today. I made it because I felt it's a beautiful form. It's a different style. It has a different emotion to it, and it worked out for what I thought the film should be. So I sort of took the penalty and figured, well, I guess I'm not going to make my money back.
Well, what I thought was weird watching the film is that it's actually more immersive than some of the 3D movies I've seen lately, and they're really pushing the 3D aspect. Can you talk sort of about how you did get the color palette with the grays and the whites and the blacks that you achieved in the film?
Well, in black and white, and 90% of the world's greatest movies were made in black and white, probably, and it's a different art form. The lighting has the burden, and the photography has the burden of separating all these kinds of gray from one another. So if you're in a color film and you're in an orange shirt and you're sitting in front of a blue wall, you don't have to worry about knowing where your shirt is and where the wall is. But in black and white, you have to do a lot of time-consuming lighting or bouncing something to highlight your shoulder or your face. So black and white photography has a beautiful kind of style of modeling, very dramatic in film noir films where they're using it for mystery and suspense. But in all black and white films, it's an issue. And it's more time-consuming and therefore more expensive. So in movies today, it seems that whatever doesn't appeal to a huge, wide audience, I mean, if it can't open in 4,000 theaters, it's very hard to get it financed and very hard to get it distributed. In my own case, I now have just decided to basically finance the film myself, so I'm not worrying so much about whether or not I'm going to appeal to this mass market. I'm trying to make something as beautiful as I can, and that's what's in it for me.
And Vincent Gallo has a face that just works for this type of cinematography. Can you talk about...
Especially when you get the hair off his face, because he tends to cover himself in beards and hairs, and if you were to see him today, you realize that, it was a job to get him to really... He's a beautiful guy. I mean, he has a fabulous face and what have you, but like many creative people, he's insecure and he tries to cover himself up with hair. I have a beard because I have a very large lip, and I was always self-conscious about my lip, so I grew a beard to hide my lip.
Really, that's
Everybody is doing something that they're insecure about, but to get Vincent to really shave that all off and let me photograph, I think his face is very strong.
And what had you seen of his in the past that made you want to get him in the movie besides what he looks like as far as his performance?
I didn't know his work. I had heard about some wild guy who was always getting in trouble with this or that, but I needed someone to play this brother, and someone in Argentina. In Argentina, where they don't have movies coming out easily, they know more about a lot of artists than we do, and someone suggested Vincent Gallo, and I had never really seen him, and so I got Buffalo 66, which he directed. I liked it quite a bit, and I thought his character was very curious and interesting, and then I saw the films that he made, and everyone said, oh, he's a tough guy to deal with, and I called him up. He was extremely nice, and I said, well, would you consider come visit me for a week, and we'll just hang out together and get to know each other? And he did. And when he walked, I went to pick him up at the airport. When he walked out to the airport, I said, this is the guy. Just felt it, and when I got to know him, I found him extremely intelligent and interesting, and I liked being with him, and he was very funny. He has a very weird sense of humor. I think he gets a lot of things he says are meant to be funny, but people take him serious, So it was a happy experience for me. He worked hard. He was very collaborative and suggested good things, and I like to work in a very collaborative way with the actors and hear their ideas and take their ideas whenever they could make it better. And I liked him, and of course the boy Alden was very young, so he really loved hearing Vincent tell him stories about the New York art scene of the 80s, or the fashion world. Vincent knows a lot of things about many subjects, and so the kid just naturally they sort of fell into what the relationship was, which is a young kid idolizing his brother, so when you make a film, you try to have the actors parallel the relationships that are supposed to be going on in the story as much as possible. That's what the director does. You don't pull performances out of people. You just set the stage for them to naturally feel comfortable and be as giving as they can be.